From now on, I will make you fishers of men. And you are to gather as many as possible, all kinds. I will sort them out later.
All right, guys, welcome. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Yes. I'm Colton Williams.
that's it.
I'm a married man, and I do campus missions full time.
Valid. And you?
Yeah, my name's Mitchell Wollard. I'm a husband to Blair, dog dad, and I'm also a campus missionary.
Valid. How long have you guys been doing campus missions for?
This is our third year.
Yeah, so a little over 2.5 years.
Yeah. What does that look like?
Oh gosh, if I had to give you the logistics answer, well, no, not even logistics. In a way of, I sometimes struggle to say like, oh, I'm just a missionary. I feel like it's helpful to contextualize it with campus missionary.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way you would think of someone being sent to a foreign land, though this is a college campus that I spent 4 years at, trying to get a degree and get out. I am still very much a sent person who gives all of my time, effort, and capacity to discipling college students. The same way.
Sorry, dead gum.
Woo! You some of that water down there, dude?
Dude.
Oh,
Gosh, dude.
dude, I don't know what. Like, something just got stuck in my
I care
throat.
about campus ministry, I guess. But in the same way you think of like someone being sent to Japan or to Africa, it's definitely the same mindset, different context. Of I gave up my ideas of what a normal thing to do, like with my degree, with my life was, and decided to sign up for more years at the university I tried to leave so quickly. So a lot of my time is spent meeting random college students and inviting them into something bigger than just being a biology major or a film major, and hoping to live life very close with them the way Jesus lived life with his disciples. Campus missions.
Nice. What about you, Colt?
I think something to add to that is, and I've only been a missionary in this setting, at least in a long-term sense. And so I don't know like what it looks like in other settings fully, but what I do know is pretty unique to campus missions is the same way your life is unique when you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've heard this explained in this language before, where all your spaces, like where you work, where you gather, where you eat, whatever it is, like you do it all in the same spot and you see like the same people all the time. It is like an ecosystem. And so with campus missions, this is the way I always put it. Campus missions especially is a sandbox, because that is like what a campus, that is the environment of a campus. So what I mean by that and what I've learned is, because a student's life is immersed in all those ways in one spot, if you give your time to a college student, then the opportunity to consistently guide someone to contextualize revelation to their lives is pretty unique. And maybe like, if I was to guess what maybe like some kind of like inner city discipleship could look like, where you get to see the person when every now and then or something, and you only hear like a little bit. It's like, it's different. You're with students all the time. And basically, when I think about with guys, there's all types of things we talk about. But the most relevant things you talk about is school and girls.
It's valid.
And so in that sense, it's like, it's different, but it's like your life is not going to be about school and girls forever.
Yeah.
But your life will always like seem to be about very like important things, and they'll just replace school and girls with something else.
Mm-hmm.
Family and church, or family and job is probably the most relevant, And so it's like when you learn with campus discipleship, campus missions is getting to be with people to contextualize that in every part of their life, because a campus is where like you're really figuring out how to do all of that in a small setting. So when you learn how to do something like school and girls, then you're like, okay, now I need to let those things, I need to figure out how to contextualize Revelation to family and work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's like first things that come to mind of what like campus missions is and what it looks like. But yeah.
That's valid.
The 3Gs. You know what the 3Gs are?
God, Gym, Gaming.
No.
Gold girls.
I know God's got to be one.
I guess there's a lot. I guess there's a
Girls.
lot of 3Gs.
There are. What are your 3Gs? Grant.
No. God, guns, and girls.
Okay.
Guns.
I got two.
Yeah.
I got two.
I mean, like that. I can't
Is
remember.
it just like a country boy thing?
It might be. I don't know. I just remember like
I like
my parents were like joking with me one time because I think I was like 14 or something, and I was at my grandparents, and I grabbed they always had BB guns because it was out in the country in like East Texas. So I grabbed a BB gun. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go shoot some stuff, and they're like, oh great, this is the 3Gs era, the 3Gs phase. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, God, guns, and girls, and I was like, amen.
When was that?
I don't know. It was like several years ago. I want to say I was like 14.
I don't think you grew out of that phase. I don't think anybody has.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think the girls would turn into girl rather than girls over time.
Do you feel like guns is like gaming though?
What do you mean?
Like, I feel like I don't hear like guns being a big part of someone, like a guy's life, unless they're.
I think
Isaac.
over time the guns turn into these kind of guns. You know,
okay.
rather than
So
like the
gym?
physical. Yeah. So gym instead of guns.
Okay.
No, I like guns.
But I mean, guns in gaming too. You know?
Guns are in gaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
See, the guns just like get hidden away, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you just don't want to talk about it, you know. It's
Yeah.
kind of a like touchy subject.
Yeah. I like guns. I love guns.
It's like what's the thing is like, men never really grow up. Like men don't stop playing with toys. Their toys just get more expensive.
Yeah. And cooler.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like the guns represents like interest, like something like.
That's true. Okay.
In my mind, at least for what I know about myself and what I've also seen with most guys now, is like gaming. It's probably. I just hear guys talk more about gaming than
Definitely the guys you're around.
Yeah, at least the guys I'm around.
And
Unless you're just around all these like, big country boys that are always talking about their guns.
Yeah.
And then you stop chasing girls and start chasing women.
Mm.
Or a woman.
You stop
There you
chasing
go.
and you just wait, and then find the one.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe that's the difference between a boy and a man.
That's a good topic.
What does that look like for you? How does that look like for you guys? With finding
ask
women?
me later.
For finding guns, or how we found the
Probably
one
for
girl.
women. Did
Yeah,
you
I feel
use your guns to
Facebook
find a woman?
Marketplace is
What?
for
You
guns.
can't use Craigslist anymore.
Yeah, back in our day, kid. You said your question was.
Yeah, like with women,
How
you
do
know.
you get a girlfriend?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, not for mine. I don't have to worry
Yeah, you
about
know,
that.
all that stuff.
asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just take notes.
But just from like personal testimony with like from that shift from boy to man with chasing girls to finding a wife, what does that look like? Or what has that looked like?
To your question.
Because both you are married men,
That's true.
unlike us.
I did say that. I did let everyone know that too. So.
Yeah, he's taken,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Sorry.
Unfortunately.
Mitchell's not though, because he didn't point it out.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I guess he did,
He-
but
but
he
he
didn't
didn't do what
fly.
I
He didn't
did.
flash the
Yeah.
ring, so
Yeah. I was a little more physical with it.
I actually gave my wife a name.
Mm.
Yeah, well,
gave it to
you
her.
know, people are gonna
Put
start
the
searching
cameras-
up your wife, and people aren't gonna search up my wife. So I'm like, she's secure now. So.
I think she's beautiful. Men can look. Just watch out. Grant's got guns.
Mm. GGG.
Great Grant.
I hesitate to answer the question because I think I was dealt a very lucky hand. My wife and I met in middle school.
oh shoot,
So if you didn't meet her in middle school, good luck.
you're done.
Don't go back to middle school. Yeah, Yeah, so it really was like in the same friend group, and it just very gradually we got closer to do the best friends thing, and then all of a sudden we're halfway through high school, and we're like, come on, what are we doing? And so we dated a little bit in high school, but she broke up with me November 25th, 2016.
He's got it
That's
down
like
to
when you
the
guys were
T.
born.
Yeah, it was actually.
And then we got close again like the next school year, but we decided we wouldn't start dating again unless we were both going to the same college, and we did. So then we dated for pretty much exactly 3 years throughout college, got engaged, and we've been married a little over 3 years now. And so it's, I guess I get to more uniquely, I guess, get to speak to is learning pursuit after you've been with a woman for like literally a decade. Like so much of my life has had Blair in it. Over the majority of my life has had Blair in it. And so since our relationship grew so gradually, I never like saw Blair across the classroom or the bar or like whatever at church service and like saw her and was like, gosh dang, she's beautiful. I need to come up with like some pickup line. I need to go like shoot my shot. It was like we were always best friends. And so then that became something of all of a sudden I'm married to my best friend, but that was very dangerous grounds of just being roommates and like continuing to just be best friends without like a certain aspect of intimacy and like pursuit in that way of like, you hear about you still need to date your wife. That was very much a lesson I didn't learn quick enough of having actual hopes and desires for your marriage, having a conscious idea of what it looks like to lead my wife, to disciple my wife, were not things on my mind in high school, through college, even in the early stages of marriage, really until I started doing ministry. So when people ask for dating advice, I'm normally like, don't do what I did. And God's so gracious in that, to where it was like we had a great foundation. It was just time for me to step up and be more of a leader, view my wife as more than my best friend, but like a partner, someone to pursue something with and to pursue her. Yeah, I think that's a little bit of I think it's most of our story probably.
That's good.
I met my wife in the same hospital. We were both born, so I've known her.
Yeah,
She's the nurse that delivered you?
No, Kev, you know this. Actually, no, you know this because we used to joke about junior year.
Yes.
I met Hope my junior year of college. She was a freshman, so I was that guy. But, the way I think about it is, I don't think I was ever in a spot that I was. Well, maybe like in high school was in a spot where my pursuit was just like, if a girl likes me, then like that's good enough. I think I was at this spot. I mean, I definitely had a little bit of a standard, but I would say what mattered was being wanted, I guess, which I would say is pretty boyish.
Yeah.
I don't know if I go as far as to say that that's like the worst thing ever, but that's definitely like a boy thing.
Yeah.
Your standard was that she looked at you when you walked past the hallway.
Pretty much, yeah. Like that's and I think there's an element to it like that. It's like you need that confirmation. Or obviously, like you're not going to be able to move forward, and that confirmation gives you confidence to take the next step. But then you choose like what that next step is. So I would say like by the time I met Hope, I was looking for something more than maybe I would look for before then, which would be to just be accepted or maybe like fitting some image I had of what she should look like, whether it was like physical or personality or something.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have a perfect approach like when I was meeting Hope, but I do believe when I was making that decision to pursue her that I was, to the best of my abilities at the time,
Mm-hmm.
was trying to think about who she would be as a wife
Mm-hmm.
and even as a mother. Maybe not like super like intensely as like
Right.
a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, like, man, who is this girl that I met like 2 weeks ago going to be as a mom? But like, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I remember Hope was probably the first girl that I was pursuing that I really was like trying to think about those things.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, and that was also like really freshly after like my pursuit for God was like different. And now that I'm like saying it in this light, I'm kind of like putting two and two together. I was actually talking about with someone today that I feel like my relationship with God is super marked by actually like having that void, I guess, of being pursued. Like that's my whole story, which that's for a different time. You know this, like that's what started my journey. Was the day after I stopped believing in God is when I met God again.
Yeah.
And so that was that happened like a half a year before I met Hope. And so a part of it was like that had been redeemed already. And so then I was like trying to actually figure out like, okay, this is different. I live differently now. I didn't always think about it in the most perfect way, but I was like, I know that my standard of life is different. And so
Right.
I'm looking for something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was already trying to approach things more as like, okay, whoever I'm with, we're building something. Probably didn't use that language in my mind, but I think that's what I was thinking. We're going to build something. So this person and I, like, in a lot of ways, what I saw in Hope is like, I remember like sitting in front of her when we first talked, and I was like, there were things in her like, man, I wish that I was like that. I remember thinking that, and I was like, that's like one of the reasons why I want to be with that person.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll add though to this like conversation, this topic is, I think, to answer with a little bit more relevance to what you're talking about, like when it comes to, I guess, romance or pursuit and being redeemed as like as a man as opposed to like doing it as a boy. For me, it's more about when I was in the relationship, not necessarily like, which I guess is still pursuit, but not necessarily like looking for the girl. It's like, okay, don't steal her phone and think that that's funny and that's how you're gonna get the girl.
Like middle school.
It doesn't work.
Flirting.
It doesn't work, but you still see it in college. It does not work, so do not do that. And if it does work, then you got the wrong girl. But anyways,
What if both of you go to clown college?
that's some other. Well, actually, I don't know. Can't speak to that. I don't know anything about.
Yeah,
college.
that's
Do they
right.
let girls in?
Don't knock it till you try it, all
I think
right?
clowns are only guys.
Yeah, my fault.
Is there a different word for a female clown? I don't know.
Clownette.
Clownette.
Hope not.
Anyway, sorry,
No,
I just
is there-
completely,
I
I just
no, you
completely
did.
I
like
think clown's an inclusive
derailed
word.
the conversation. What?
I think that's an inclusive word.
Clown?
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. That's inclusive.
Oh,
It's
you foolish
2025.
Galatians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that, man, I can speak to that. Not necessarily because like I'm like a super ideal man now, a super ideal husband, but gosh, like the very beginning of our relationship was like there were a lot of boyish things in me, and there was still like that thing in me that like wanted to be validated that I was like worth being with. Because I remember, like, not to go too far down this, but I remember there being moments where I was just really hard on myself, like, man, I'm like not hitting the mark. Like I actually don't want someone with me because that sucks for them. Like I remember like thinking that. And I'll even say even that kind of thought, like, I don't think it's helpful to say that that's just a bad thought. But that is not like the way a man thinks, and especially that's not the way a man who loves God like should think about themselves. But I will say briefly, and then I'll just say this, and then we can talk more about it. You can ask more questions, but I'll just say what I've seen in being a man and pursuing a woman, more so like once it's like we're locked in like as a couple, is to want to actually build something, like I said.
Right.
For it to be more than just design what it could look like, but to take steps of like intention to it. Because you got the girl now, so like what are you going to do? What do you want? If it was just to have her, then accept that, and then develop it, and don't let it just be like that. Because for a while I sat in that place a little bit, and so I'll leave it at that, and then we can keep talking about it and then talk more towards it.
Yeah, I don't really have any like comments, so it's really cool because I don't have any experience like that
Yeah.
that stage, you know. But hopefully that snowball's building, you know, in that direction.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is something that I've put a lot of thought into, is that like there's like two trains of thought that I find myself like leaning into, and it's one, either like you go into a relationship thinking you have everything figured out, and you're like, okay, I'm good to go, I'm set, I'm the man I need to be in this relationship. Or you go into a relationship like not feeling that way, and then you get there eventually. Hold on, let me think of a better way to phrase this. You don't go into a relationship perfect, you know? Like, you're never going to be perfectly ready to start that relationship. Is that what you guys are kind of saying? Is that, like, both of you went into your relationships?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Or either you go into a relationship thinking you're ready and then figure out that you're not, and then you end up growing along the way.
I mean, I'll even say I didn't even think that. Like,
Right.
I think maybe what I'm speaking to, and this is kind of you saying it's helping me, I had no aim, really.
Yeah.
And I think a boy doesn't have an aim.
Okay.
They're just trying to be a part of something and just trying to experience something, you know?
Right.
You're just trying to whack something and break it or climb something. Like, you don't, like, have much of an aim, like, once you're
kind of just going
on the tree. You're like,
Yeah.
now what do I do? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's what I would say is the crux of, like, when you're still, like, approaching things as a boy, is you don't have a aim or a direction.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think I was probably. I never interacted with my relationship like. I don't remember ever overthinking things, but I never thought about it critically. Like I was probably 22 and married before I realized like I have to put intention like into this.
Yeah.
I lived too much of our relationship like distracted and not like paying attention to what mattered. So I wasn't even ever asking the question or ever worried about, am I prepared for this relationship? Am I the man I want to be? I was always like, I like this girl, and when I think about not having this girl in my life, that sucks. And so that was like as deep as it got for me. Was like, I want to be with this girl. I didn't think through like if I was being a jackwagon the whole time, or if I knew anything about how to be smooth or how to like take care of her. So I mean, like hindsight, yeah, I wasn't ready. But I'd say also wasn't something I thought about. Probably should have in many ways, but I think it was. Yeah, it's just like another side of the coin that I just very much lacked intention, and it had like an ignorant bliss to it, I guess, a little bit of like, we can just be together.
Party all day.
Yeah. But then that lifestyle will stick with you, and you will still just be riding the wave, and then but you live together.
Right.
And so it's like a hidden danger, I guess. Was never an awareness of like, dang, am I a chump or not? It was, it just always felt like we're riding the wave and we have fun.
The thing about riding the wave is eventually it'll hit the shore. So Was that kind of goofy. I thought that was
Oh,
gonna sound cool. No,
Sorry,
no, but genuinely,
it was
But
good.
you're right.
yeah.
That's good.
But so with that, like the idea of approaching a relationship as a boy, acting out as a boy compared to a man, would you say that's a defining characteristic of what a man is in comparison to a boy, or do you think that goes deeper than how you pursue women?
Like you're saying, to want to be a man, like
Well, what's like the defining characteristic of the transition between boyhood and manhood? Do you think? Is it just like realizing that it's not all about you and it's time to pursue like something greater than yourself, like a family and a wife, or you think it's something beyond that, biblically, or?
Yeah, I think it's some of it. Like, and mostly I say that because I know that I don't know all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do, like, that I can agree with because that's, like, true for what God's revealed to me. I know that for sure. Because I'll even say, like, for myself, like, even with when I decided to study, I mean, you all both know this, I studied film. Which,
Lame.
gee,
There's
at one
three.
point, all four of us studied film.
We did. I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
that guy
Yes.
left.
Yes.
I always forget about that thing.
I missed this
Hey,
place.
well, you still got a couple years to
Go back to
Go
film,
back
pick up
and-
a minor.
repent. Some people might use that word and say repent.
Yeah,
but-
go back to film.
I mean, I love film school. But and so I'll say this first. Pursuing film is not a bad idea. But like what's a little bit different is like it is like a people that pursue film are mostly pursuing passion. And that's okay.
Right.
And the issue with that is it's just passion and there's no like it's just about you. It can be. And then you can say that the issue with just like pursuing law for the sake of making money is just bad because you're just thinking about like not having enough, right?
Right.
But the issue like for me was even before I met the girl that like I decided to choose, was I wasn't already thinking about like, and I do think this is important. I wasn't already thinking about my future. I do think like I should have already been thinking about that. That didn't mean that I have to think like, okay, so for my future I want to provide for my wife and my kids. So check out like scratch out film, scratch out any of the arts. Like, dang, I guess that's all that's left is law or medicine or something. Like, I don't think it has to be like that. But I do think if you're going to pursue something like film, for example, then there has to be like if that's the thing you want to do, then you do have to think about beyond yourself even before there's those people in your lives. Like I'm already thinking about my kids, and I don't even have any kids yet. But I'm already thinking about how I want to set up for them. And so I wish I was doing that when I was 18.
Right.
Like before, like I came into college, I wish I was already thinking about like, okay, I want to do film. It's a little bit like not as guaranteed to make money or even have like a job that's ideal right off the bat. But I really want to do this, but I'm going to do it like a man. And so I'm going to think about how to build the skills to maybe work a couple jobs, maybe do like wedding photography as a job before like I graduate. And so I'm already knowing how to like run my own film business before I go into like some other thing. Anyways, I say all that to say like I think to speak to your point, like I do think part of like a marking of a man is to think ahead of time. And you know, you got some guys that like they do come into college and they're like, I'm gonna do all these things so I can have this money. And it is good. It's actually probably manlier than what I came into. But then it also probably needs a little bit more thought, sincerity.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more humanness to it, you know.
Right.
And so, but
That makes sense.
yeah.
So, here's a question because I think it's really good and it'll be good for people to hear. Were you guys perfect boyfriends or perfect husbands going into your relationships?
No.
No.
I'd say yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay.
No.
No. And did you expect your wives or girlfriends at that point to be perfect either?
I mean, definitely not perfect.
No, I mean, I definitely wasn't perfect in a way of like. I mean, we were also so young. Like I didn't have any money to take care of her.
Right.
I battled pornography like very much into college and stuff, and so like we were together while that was an issue, and though that was a private deal, it was still like definitely a lack of perfection. And so yeah, I think you expected the answer to the question to be no, we weren't perfect at all. And again, kind of like I said, I didn't carry some sort of standard or like. I think everything I could probably say could probably be summed into like a lack of hope. Not that I was hopeless and thought like bad things were to come. I actually just wasn't intentional enough to think about beyond now. So I wasn't focused on like at the time who I was going to become. I wasn't focused on ways I thought she could do better or like that she will hopefully reach some sort of expectation I have. I was like, right now, I still like you, being with you. Life without you sounds stinky. And so I think all that kind of just sums up into like a lack of foresight. Not articulating hope. I don't know if I would have said it was like, because a lot of times inarticulate hopes there might be like fear associated with it, and I don't know if. I think I actually had a pretty privileged life where I just didn't have to think about like what's next or like really figure out my things. I guess I just always expected to be taken care of. So I don't know. I never had like those pipe dreams for us or our relationship. Definitely wasn't perfect.
Yeah. I mean. Definitely that. I mean, that's kind of like the theme we're talking about here. Like you're like not looking ahead.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's weird for me to talk about that now. I definitely like am trying to take those steps in my life.
Right.
Right now, sometimes it's hard to talk about. Because it's like, especially when you're talking about with people that a lot of times in our case like that are younger than us. But we were in their spot like just a few years ago. It's kind of hard to talk about sometimes because you're like, you think about what you were doing a few years ago, and you're like, man, it doesn't feel right for me to not tell you this because like you should know, but it also feels weird for me to tell you because like I was a chotch, so like I didn't do anything too, but I just try to focus on like I'm telling you because I'm hoping you do better.
Yeah.
But I do think like I'm 26 now. I'm still like relatively young. I mean, in the context of people I'm with, I'm like super old, but
yeah,
I'm still like pretty young, but I don't like. I love the guys I'm around, and I don't want them to be 26 and realize these things.
Yeah.
You know, what I always say is like, whatever took me 3 years, I hope it takes you like 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one thing. Like that's definitely like what we're talking about here is like there's just not looking ahead, and I feel like that's OG man stuff. I mean, you just think about like manhood in a lot of cultures starts when you're 12.
Yeah.
Dude, think about how much Minecraft you played when you were 12. You were building something, but nothing that mattered.
I got excited to have the flu so I could stay home and play Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take a test and then just after the test just think about what I was gonna build in Minecraft.
But then like you get man sick, you know, even as a boy, you know, like man sick.
Like
Does that have to do with guns?
No, oh yeah. No,
Girls.
like growing up, like my mom would get sick and she'd be like, "Oh, I have the flu," and then she'd be like doing the dishes and like working from home, like on her computer, and she'd basically be doing like the same things she was if she wasn't sick. She was just at home doing them instead of at the office. But then it's like when me or like my dad gets sick, we're like laying on the couch all day with the saltine crackers, like man sick.
Yeah.
You know.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
I never heard that term, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But even as a kid, I remember like, I'd be like, yes, I'm running a fever.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to school today. I can stay home and play
Yeah.
my video games. But then I would try to play my video games, and I'd be like, oh, I just want to lay down on my bed.
Dude, I was doing that in high school.
Weak.
Like,
Yeah.
I was intentionally trying to, like, I got excited if I was sick because I did not like going to school.
Yeah.
And I would, like, just stay home and play games. Like, I remember one of my years, I, like, missed at least a day of school for every week for, like, a whole semester.
Mm-hmm.
During, like, the COVID no attendance thing.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to stay home and play games, you know?
Yeah.
But it was crazy.
Yeah, dude, my mom would not let us miss school. Like, it was like, unless, and she would like fight us on it too, even if we were saying we were sick. Like, unless we threw up right there, right before we left for school, like, we did not stay home. So when I got to college, and I would get sick just like everyone gets sick a couple times a year, people would be like, why are you in class right now? Like, what do you, like,
Yeah.
go take medicine. I'm like, I don't know what medicine to buy or how long I should stay in my dorm because I don't know what to do.
My
when
mom
I'm
wouldn't
sick.
let me stay
So
home.
I'm just like, I don't know, like, what's, like, really bad.
Yeah.
Because some people would be like, my tummy hurts, and my mom would always let me stay home when my tummy hurt.
Mhm.
Like, no, there's no shot that would have happened
Mm-hmm.
in my house.
Mom, my stomach hurts. Are you throwing up?
That's what she
Are
would
you
say.
bleeding out of your ears?
She would say, unless you're throwing up blood, you're going to school.
That's crazy.
Mom, I have a stomach virus. Is it a bloody stomach
Prove
virus?
it.
Ebola, yeah, prove it. Poop your pants right now.
Let me see it.
Okay.
The conversation just took a drastic turn off.
No, this is a good direction. Let's
Dude,
go ahead
it is
and
good.
continue to
So-
talk about poop. and
So
stuff.
much of my life, like growing up, has to do with playing video games, actually, and there's probably a good year of Minecraft in there. But I was a really good student, and it didn't take that much effort, thankfully, so I just got to collect my A's and a couple B's, and like, I had two older siblings that got into more trouble, and so my parents essentially just kind of let me be over there. Like, he's going to school, doing well. All he wants to do is play video games. Like, could be a gangbanger, so let's leave him in there.
That is the
You say that
worst.
like that's what your siblings do, which I know that's not what they do.
Crazy contrast.
That is the worst, like, description.
Is that the third
Why?
That
What
you-
is it? Yeah, that's the third. It's not guns for me. It's,
Games, guns, and gangbanging.
oh, you took out God.
Oh,
Because
my
if you're gangbanging, you don't have God, you know?
That's true,
That's the
that's true.
thing.
Hey, can you love God and be in a gang?
That's a real
We
question.
That's
need
the
to have a
title.
gang member on here. We need to have a gang member on here. I ain't throwing out no names, but I got contacts.
But I skipped at least 2 school days in my life with permission because my older brother would take me to the midnight release of the new Call of Duty game, and my parents would let me stay home with him and we'd play because it was like, I guess they felt like they didn't have any a dog in the fight. They're like, he's doing everything fine. He can miss a day of school, I guess. And so
Oh,
I'd
sweet.
live stream for my friends if like, or like when a new Destiny update would come out and my parents let me stay home because I'd like whatever by the end of the semester, if you've only missed this many days, you don't have to take the test or whatever. And so I'd have a free day home and like live stream the new video game update for all my friends to play to watch while they were in class.
Nice.
That's crazy.
But as pretty gnarly as that sounds, I really, I can look back and say that is the amount of video games I was allowed to play and was absorbed in is what I place the blame on, like my lack of like being able to articulate hopes, think about the future, because I lived at least 7 years of my life like chronically distracted. Even though I felt like I had the freedom to do that and school was taken care of, whatever, I guess Blair didn't mind that much that I played so much or anything. Like, it was just what I did was get home and play. Hindsight is now, like, I wonder, like, why could I not remember that much about, real life memories with friends? Like, I think more of my fond memories from middle school and high school is like having the flu to stay home and play Minecraft, or like
Yeah.
this Call of Duty session, Rocket League session with the boys. It's like those are more memories I think about. And so no wonder I couldn't have articulated like wanting to become a better man. Is because like I lived my life as the man, like in the games that I played.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I wasn't
didn't really think about that.
articulating like what real life should be because everything was peachy. As a young man, the only problem you ever hear that you need to fix is like, boys, you should probably not watch porn. But it was like, if you play video games like that, could be so much worse. And so, dude, that was my life was just gaming. And then, yeah, no wonder you can't be intentional with something. It's because you're never paying attention to anything. You're building Minecraft's a funny joke, but it's like you're literally investing in a virtual world that if an EMP ever goes off, and it's like, what do I have to show for my life? Who knows what the question was or why we got there, but
No, that's valid.
Minecraft.
I played a lot of games throughout my whole life. I think my family, we got a Wii when I was like 3. I was playing computer games on like Flash games when I was 2 on my parents' computer. And I just played. I mean, it was definitely limited. Like, my parents would put time on, like, 30 minutes of Mario. Here you go. But as I grew older, those, like, slowly went away. And like you said, like, in middle school and high school, like, I was homeschooled up until high school. And, like, I would literally get my homeschool done in, like, an hour and just play Fortnite all day for, like, the longest time.
Let's go.
And, like, Minecraft and stuff. So I can really relate to that. And I'm still a big gamer. I just feel like the attention on it's kind of shifted. And like the intention behind like what I'm trying to be intentional on is kind of shifted too, but I still play plenty of games. You know?
Yeah, and dude, when I have the freest of days on like a Christmas break, I mean I'm seeing what my older brother's up to, and we hop online.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's not something I would condemn, and I think that's a lot of the things like gray area things of that I would never classify video games within themselves as wicked or sinful. You just have to be like so incredibly careful that oftentimes it just seems to be not worth it. Because who's actually going to be like disciplined enough to say like, nope, I'm just going to play for 90 minutes, or who doesn't have something more important that they should be doing, like it's video games or like certain music that's like, this music isn't bad. It's like, and that's probably normally a good litmus test for any gray area thing that we find ourselves distracted by, consuming, or investing ourselves into. Is, do I jump to justification or of why like playing this game, like it's not like bad, or am I quicker to say like what it adds to my life? Is usually a good litmus test of what's a worthy investment.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. I like that.
Yeah, I found myself kind of in the same boat, not quite as like, I don't know, fully distracted by video games, but I have found, I have found that when it comes to video games, I have a very addictive personality, and that like if I start playing a video game that I like I'm not an online video game person. I'm like a single player story driven. And so if I get wrapped up in like a good story game, it's like it'll be all I think about. Like it'll be like, oh, instead of thinking like what am I going to do for the rest of the day? When am I going to do this? It's like, okay, I have free time at this part of the day, so I'm going to go play some here. Yeah. And then I find myself like, especially when I came to college and started getting like closer with God, and then I started trying to jump back in. Because there was a period my senior year of high school where I was just not in a great place mentally, and so I just like didn't do anything that was really fun. And then when I, was in a better place, got my relationship with God in a good place, then I started kind of like dipping my toe back into playing some video games. And then I found like this weird, like it was almost like a pull in two directions, that I'd never really thought about before. Like all I was thinking about was playing these video games. Then I also knew that it's like, there's something wrong here now. Now that I know what like a really close relationship with God looks like, it feels like this is getting in the way somehow.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like push and pull has been something that I've like struggled with throughout my college career. And I've kind of found the same thing that you guys have kind of come to in that, like, video games in and of themselves are not bad. You know, like, they're not evil or sinful. But it's, you have to be aware enough of yourself and your personality and be responsible in that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I know that I have started in the last year or so just restraining myself. If I have a really, really free day, then like maybe, but I also know that it's like, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, that's wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this faith is that what God invites us into is transformation. That's always been like, maybe I haven't always articulated it like that, but that's always been like what's changed, what has, I guess, rocked my world. Has been like, that's what is available. It's not just like a philosophy that just like is a little bit more ideal than any other philosophy or more relevant or something. It's been that like there can be transformation in your life. You are supposed to actually be a new like person. Like there's supposed to be a new life. And so I mention that because like even when I think about this stuff and when I think about it for myself and I think about it for the people in front of me, what I hope for in them is something we're talking about here is what we would think about when we were like younger, like waiting for like a free time or something. Like I said, like I remember like taking a test and I would finish it early and it would be like an hour until we all could leave the classroom, and I remember like thinking, if I finish this test like right now, then I'll have this much time to think about what I'm going to build on Minecraft when I go home.
Yeah.
But then it's like, then I go to my next class, I'm thinking, okay, I got 3 more hours until I get to build this thing. So we're saying like those kinds of things, and then he's saying things like, you know, like think about like the characters or the stories that you like. Like they're not, I'm going to guess you don't play video games where your main character is this fairy that needs to be saved. I'm going to guess that that's not the game you're playing.
That's his favorite game.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
you need to get out.
Tinkerbell
Wonderland.
Tinkerbell Wonderland.
I love that game.
Pass.
Princess
Match.
Tinkerbell Wonderland Princess
Ooh.
Rescue.
Yeah, it's awesome, right?
You just gotta wait to be rescued.
Dude, I'm waiting for the second one. Comes out next June.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Dude, God already rescued us, guys.
Yeah, nice.
Amen.
But that's like, I mean, I don't know what games you play, but I'm going to guess like the main character is pretty cool. You know, like he's like, in some ways, like pretty ideal.
Yeah.
Arthur Morgan.
Dude, Red Dead Redemption 2 is my favorite.
That's
video
what
game.
you play the game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that much about the game, but like the story's like cool and pretty rugged, right?
Yeah.
So you think about,
It's
and
like
then
the manliest dude ever.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like the main character's like super manly. Minecraft, you get to build like whatever you want. Like these are like, if everything is spiritual, which I believe it is, these are things that God has like put in men. Like I don't think it's just like kind of a cool connection. Like there being young boys that think about what they're gonna build on Minecraft is actually, it's a little like, okay, don't stay in that spot too long. But it is kind of cool because it's like you're watching them like actually engage with something that they was like put in them, that they're like designed to do. And then same with the characters you pick. And so like what I think is like worthy of talking about is there is something in us that wants to like do those things. It's not just like, oh, that's a guy thing. You know, guys always are thinking about the Roman Empire, which I don't even know if that's
it's
true
so true.
or
It's
real.
so true.
If that's the case, then I'm a beta because I don't think about that at
See,
all.
I don't think about the necessarily just like what were the Romans doing in this point. But like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I do occasionally like just think about like a Roman emperor, like Marcus Aurelius, or I'll think about like, I don't know, like the Roman gladius, like the sword, or like I'll think about the movie Gladiator, just like stuff like
I
that.
don't think of like gladiators, just like soldiers.
Yeah.
It's my Roman Empire thought.
Or I'm like Sparta, stuff like that. Like I'll just you know.
Yeah, mine's just God. I'm just thinking.
Oh,
about
okay.
God.
Yeah, I normally
Yeah.
think
okay.
about
Yeah.
lost sheep.
Well, Jesus was in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
They killed him.
Mm.
So
That's
what does that reflect on what we're
That was
thinking
really
about?
Dang, dude.
We need to get
That's
revenge.
on my
That's what
mind.
it's saying.
Yeah, but even in that, like which I think I get the I get that trend. Like
Yeah.
I know what they're saying, and
Mhm.
so that's just who I don't know. Like I think when we can talk about this and just be like, oh, like men are supposed to build, and they're like, like that's good, like that's true, like that's why we like Minecraft. But like that is actually like a real like
Mhm.
true thing, and that's
Yeah.
where like when I talk about, that's why I love that God is in the business of transformation.
Right.
Because you can
Yeah.
actually become that guy. And by no means, like, do I feel like I've arrived. Like, man, if I sat here after this podcast and wrote a list of, like, the room I have, like, you'll see me here the next day still
Mhm.
writing. Like,
Mhm.
there's so much. But, like, I sit here and I think about, like, the boy I was, like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say, like, 3 years ago when I was still, like, in college. 3 or 4, whatever. I
8.
oh God, 10 years ago when I was in college. I just think about that, and I thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't really. Sometimes I do cringe at it, but it's like kind of like in a chuckle kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
But I thank God because like He's done something in me that's like really like doesn't feel like it's me, you know, but it's greater than me. And so like I guess the what I will like in what I'm saying with is once again there's an invitation, and the invitation is to become who you're called to be. If we're talking about like guys, like
Mm-hmm.
like there is a party that actually wants to build something, and so
Right.
what do you want to build? Like, and that doesn't have to be like construction. Hopefully it is like discipleship, like that's
Mhm.
one of the pretty big ones.
Yeah.
But even it's like yourself, like who do you
Mhm.
want to become, like
Right.
first, you know? So
Maybe that's why men think about the Roman Empire, because it was like this small village that started with
Yeah.
practically nobody and was built into this like huge freaking like empire, you
Yeah.
know?
There's the phrase all roads lead to Rome, because Rome just controls so much of the world.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, I think y'all
It wasn't
just
built in a
making
day, I
stuff
know
up.
that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I know for a fact it wasn't built in a day. Maybe a couple, but not in a day.
Yeah, a couple
It's like
days.
2 or 3 days.
Yeah, that's twice as long as what the question is thinking about.
Yeah.
Or the statement.
It's valid.
So, to you youngins, what would you articulate as the purpose of a man?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think to lead.
Yeah, I agree.
And to figure out how to articulate that more than just that.
The purpose of specifically like a man, or human, like a human being in general.
A godly man.
A godly man. Okay.
Mog. There is
Yeah.
mogging on this podcast. It's happening right now.
We're gonna get banned.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, you do know what
Oh,
mogging
you're the
is.
thinker, bro. It's not even logging.
The thinker. Hold on.
You are not the thinker.
Make sure you flex when you do
Yeah,
this.
okay.
You gotta do the.
I like that. Are you flexing?
No, I think leadership is the purpose of men. Because I mean, yeah, we've been talking about like ourselves and what we want to build in other people and what we want to build in relationships, but a lot of the building is like we're leading that building, you know, and especially like with a woman. I know how you guys have seen it, but it's like the leadership qualities of not only leading yourself in your relationship with Christ, but her, you know, to follow along with that. And like with children, you know, to lead, to grow the kingdom of heaven, and to lead other men, like alongside, or women, you know, just anybody alongside you. And I think leadership not only just for the purpose of the kingdom of heaven, but in little things like with jobs, you know, even if you have a really crappy part, you know, that you think may not be significant, that you can lead in those areas too.
Yeah.
You know, so y'all know this, I'm a delivery driver for Pizza Hut at the moment. And I was like really struggling this past summer with like humility and like not feeling too big for the job. You know, it was like, don't really like this being here. I feel like it's, you know, generic college job. I'm not really enjoying my time here, and I feel like my purpose is limited. But I had this random encounter with some dude at Walmart, some random old man that I was talking to like 45 minutes waiting on my oil change. At the end of the conversation, I didn't even talk about this to him. It was like, I just asked him for like, what's a piece of advice you'd give to a young man? And he was like, if you think you're too big for a small job, you're going to be too small for the big job when it comes along. And I was like, I got hit with the dolly zoom right there. Just sitting
Yeah.
there, what? And I feel like being in those little positions and still leading helps equip you to lead whenever you're in those greater positions, like
Yeah.
in a marriage or in a job corporately or in a relationship with and with a friendship with somebody and you're leading them, to Christ, like with discipleship.
Yeah.
So I'd say, sum it all up in one word, leadership would be the core purpose of men.
I would say my answer, if I had to sum it all up, and this is something I've thought about a lot recently, just going through the last year or so, is I think what it means to be a godly man is to be a picture of Christ, is really what it comes down to. And you can get into a lot of things with that. You can get into doing your best to imitate how God loves, doing your best to imitate how Christ lived his life. Just looking at Christ and getting as close as you can to that, I think is what you would define a godly man to be, because Christ was the guy.
Yeah.
He was that guy,
Yeah.
And it's something I've thought about a lot recently. Is something that the Bible talks about how, in a marriage, it says wives, love your husbands. What is it? Love your husbands as you would love Christ.
It's
something like that.
Ephesians 5 is husbands love your wives the way Christ loved the church.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, husbands love your wives the way Christ loved the church. And so what I've started kind of thinking about that, and as I've consumed way too many podcasts and read way too many things about it, is that the husband is supposed to be as close to a picture of Christ as we can be, and the wife is supposed to be a picture of the church in whatever way you kind of think of that as, because Christ loved the church, and does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Word.
does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say maybe that's, maybe this isn't the best language for it, but
Mhm.
I would say that's probably another element to it as well, where I've thought about how much it matters. It's probably just people in general, because women are trying to be like Christ too, but
Mhm.
especially in the context we're talking about it, for a man, what it means to be like Christ, one of those things is how you lay your life down.
Mhm.
And that could be jumping in front of a train, but I don't know the last time
Right.
y'all had the opportunity to do that for someone.
Last week, bro.
Yeah, my fault. My
No.
fault.
Poor
But
train.
that kind of stuff is typically not what's happening, but it does mean in the way you live your life in the small things,
Mhm.
in a conversation with someone, the money that's in your wallet, the way you interact with your friends,
Mhm.
what you choose to spend, the way you spend your time with them, in those kind of ways. And I feel that's what God's showed me too, is I really, whether it's for the people on the guys on the campus, or especially my wife, I want to spend myself, I
Mhm.
want to know my life was used for someone to see Christ.
Mhm.
Not really in a hero way, but just even in a way that will never be talked about too, if that's what it means,
Mhm.
And so I think you're speaking to something that's good. It's what does that look like? I think it's good to talk about that, because then you
Mhm.
start thinking, okay, what can I do to do that?
Right.
Because I think, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but let me know if you relate. I think for a while, I thought this both as being a Christian and being a good husband is being a good, a good guy
Mhm.
is being nice and bearable.
Right.
That's what I thought, especially of being a good husband, was
Mhm.
if I'm bearable and I'm nice, I don't yell at her or hit her,
Mhm.
I'm doing a pretty decent job.
Right.
But think about you see it in movies all the time, there's that guy that just sits on the couch and plays video games and stuff.
Mhm.
He's not mean, he's not hitting his wife or that stuff, but man, like he's probably hating her just as much as like if you were to hit her, because he's not doing anything that would bring her any closer to God, like, or would just even provide for her or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think like that's one way like we can be men of God and be like Christ, is like how we lay our life down.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like the self-sacrificing
yeah,
element of it.
Yes, but like also I think even this is something I've been thinking about recently too, is like how you're and you might have better language for this, I don't know, but like how you are like generous with everything, like, because I do think you can sacrifice, but then you get caught up in this thing of like, man, if it don't hurt, then I'm not doing the right thing. Like,
Yeah.
then
That's
you're
fair.
like, you're missing the point. But it's like, I feel like being generous is like you sow generously because you have like a greater hope. Like,
Right.
kind of going to what Mitchell was saying, is like, it's not flippantly. Like, you're not just doing it so that you feel like you go to bed that night and be like, well, like I sacrificed and it sucked, and so I'm doing good. It'll suck tomorrow, you know? Like, I don't think that's the thing. It's like you are, man, okay, like I'm going to spend this time, that's a decent amount of time with these people, but I like, and it's going to take out, and I guess I could do a few of these things at home, but I'm going to do this because I'm hopeful that this will come of it.
Right.
And you're sowing, that's generous. That's true, like, generosity, you know? Anyone that's ever given you a huge, generous gift isn't just, like, they probably didn't wake up and just be like, and then, like, they gave it, like, they've thought about, like, man, I really hope this helps them.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, like, just to kind of try and, like, wrap it up, like, a sacrifice that portrays the picture of Christ's sacrifice is a sacrifice where you're not focused on what you're losing, but what somebody else is gaining.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's one way to put it for sure,
Okay.
yeah.
That's kind of what I was getting. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what Christ did. I really don't think he was thinking about what he was really losing. I know he loved the men he spent 3 years with, and I think he probably wanted to just be with them, like, in that way forever. Yeah. But he also did what he did for them too. So.
Yeah, as we were kind of like talking there, I was kind of thinking of, like, you know, the husband being the picture of Christ and the wife being a picture of the church. Kind of put like this correlation together. And I'm not a professional theologian, so, but
we are.
Yeah. But like, if you think about it, like, Christ had this huge people following him, right? And he sought not to glorify himself, but his whole purpose was to save all of the people. Right, to like save and sacrifice for the church. And the church sought not to glorify themselves, but to spread Christ's name and glorify him. You know? So if we really lived like that in our relationships, then the man would be, like we were talking about, sacrifice, not focus on what he's losing, but focus on what he's giving to the church, right? Being the wife. And the wife would not be focused on glorifying herself, but how she can glorify her husband.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like an equal exchange of.
That's
and so at the end of the day, nobody really feels like they're losing something, if that makes sense. But it does that make sense?
I see where you're headed.
Okay, we're locked in.
Yeah,
okay,
we're locked
okay.
In. I hope they're locked in.
Right.
You locked in.
Yeah.
Hit that subscribe. No.
It's not about expecting to get something in return.
Yeah.
It's just about you freely give something to each other.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, whoa, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not married,
I agree
so.
Yeah, I agree. Because, I mean, we are supposed to die to ourselves. Through that, I mean, we just take more of him, more of Christ, so we live that out, live Christ out, you know, so we can give that to other people, you know.
Yeah, I think the cool way to say it is, I think being a man, like crossing from boyhood to manhood, is accepting the invitation unto death. Like, I think the purpose of a man is largely in part to go and die. and on your way there, you fight, you build, you defend honor, and you die. Hopefully you get close to God along the way too. But I think of things like when Ephesians 5 says to love your wife the way Christ loved the church, as unto death. John 15 says the greatest love is like for someone to lay down their life for their friends. And to lay down your life, it's like a willingness. Romans 12, be a living sacrifice. And then I think of the way Paul in 2 Timothy, he's writing one of his last, if not the last, epistle before. Like he is aware that his trial is not looking good, and yet he is obviously pushing himself to the point of death. Like his life has been like that's been like the true mark. Like it's what he's wanted, but because he's so confident in what is to come, that he says, I've poured out myself like a drink offering. Like he gave of himself. And I love the way he also like asks Timothy, like, also when you get this, if you could like bring me my jacket and like my parchment, that'd be nice. Like the dude was like, he knew that the mission was that it very likely would end up with him in that cell, I guess. And dude, I can directly think of my unhealthiest times being, especially in marriage, being acts of self-preservation or indulging in my own distractions or desires. Of when I have been most frustrated with Blair is when she asks me to do something while I'm on social media or while I'm in the middle of a game. And it never feels good to be like, am I 25 and asking my wife if I can wait till after this game, like to do something? Or like, I'm so frustrated that like she would ask of me to help with something in the house while does she not see my feet are propped up on the table? Like that is really foul of her. And so I just see all these things of like, my purpose is to give of myself until I croak. And I can now articulate the way I want to feel when I have kids someday that are waiting for me to get home. And will I cross through the door of my home and pat them on the head and go toss on my headset? Or am I going to like give of my life even when I've probably just spent my whole day, whether it's on campus or like whatever, and I might be tired? Will I choose again and again to like accept this invitation that it's not about me? And I'm really glad it's not about me.
Yeah.
I like the way that was said.
Yeah, and I think our time's getting close to the end. I don't know, but
We got however long.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can go a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit longer.
3-part series.
It's not even 8 yet.
I was gonna add something, and feel free to like add to this, because I say this knowing that like it's still becoming more real to me. But even like what you're talking about like that moment where you're playing a video game and Blair's trying to get your attention, that's the invitation that you're dying to. I don't know, like sometimes I really do think we've already kind of spoken to it, like especially like men that are like really just trying to lock in and go in like monk mode of a Christian. They think about, okay, gotta die to myself. And I just think you need to know like what you're dying to. And it's like that. And don't you actually want to die to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I do wonder if sometimes like when that's read, if there is like I do hope it sifts you. Like if it does make you think, I don't know if I want to do that, well then, okay, then there's some truth that's out there, and that's where your heart is. You need to know that. But I do think that it's like there's part of it like we need to know like what we want to, what we're supposed to be dying to, because that thing you actually you want to do that. Because I've had those moments too, and yeah, and they're just like, and they've been like this out of body thing where I'm watching myself do that to my wife, and I'm like, I want to punch that guy in the face. Like that guy is just like just die to it. Like I know like it's not it's not easy right now. And so I think that that's why it's dying, because it's not an easy thing. And it's at least, I mean, obviously it's not easy. Like, you can get frustrated. So you're obviously, like, there's rebellion, you know, like, there's, like, this resistance in you. But, like, that's what you're dying to. And I do think, you know, for the years that I have been, like, trying to follow Christ, I just realized that, like, the life of continuously dying to those things and the life that I live because of it, it's just so worth it. Like, and I want to actually discover more of the things to die to, not because I'm, like, just in a trance and, like, just brainwashed and, like, man, like, make it hurt, baby. When it hurts, man, like, I'm living the best life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's that's not what it is. Like, it's like, I really think that we have to know, like, the God that we serve is inviting us into a full, like, free life. That's what he's giving you. He's not just trying to make you this, like, moral soldier, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I have been in a relationship where I came out of it being like, there was so much more I could have done there, and, like, beating myself up because I didn't do it. What could I have done differently? I've been there, and I've also been in a relationship where I came out of it being like, I don't think there was anything else that I could possibly do. You know? Like, I feel like I sacrificed everything that I was able to sacrifice, and I did it for the right reasons. And I know that because I've experienced the first time around, and I've been convicted about it, but then you're not convicted the second time around, and so you're like, okay, I was doing something right this time around that I wasn't doing last time. You know? So I've been in, like, both of those situations, and I can testify that the one where I wasn't giving my all was a lot harder to get over, if that makes sense. And I don't like to use the word get over when you're talking about people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
You
Like,
said the one that you felt like you gave it your all was the hardest one? Is that what you said?
No.
Where he didn't give it himself.
Oh, okay.
Which is almost counterintuitive.
Okay, yeah.
Because you feel like if you give everything you have to somebody, then it's going to be super, super hard.
You invested less, so it should, like, be easier to dust off your feet and move on.
Right. But from my experience, it might be completely different for somebody else. But, like, if I look at that biblically, I could be like, okay, that kind of makes sense, you know? But those are, like, my experiences, is that when you are that self-sacrificing, when you are that trying to give it all, trying to sacrifice for the right reasons, like we were talking about, not because you think you're going to get something out of it, but because you want to make the other person have a good day, you know? Like, the stereotype is like, why'd you do that? The only reason I did that is to see the smile on your face with it. What are the... Yeah. Wow. But anyways, you guys can use that, just so you know, for the pickup line.
Heck no.
Valentine's Day's coming up.
Did y'all write it down?
Give them the flower. Oh, why'd you give me the flower? I just wanted to see the smile on your face.
And then going for the kiss.
But
do we want to demonstrate?
No.
Heck no. Well, after the cameras.
Okay.
But
spin this thing.
I forgot where I was going with it. So, but anyways,
you thought about kissing, didn't you?
But, like, when you are giving it your all, and when you are doing the things for the right reasons, then you come out of it and you're like, you look back and you're like, okay, I feel fulfilled because I gave everything I had.
Yeah.
Which is a weird contradiction to what society would have you believe.
Sure.
Because they would say, well, the more you give, the less you have.
Yeah.
But just as, like, the Bible shows us, it's actually the reverse. The more you give, the more you have.
Yeah.
You know, because I, like, left the first relationship where I didn't give feeling very empty. And, like, I don't have something, you know? And that's not to say you don't, like, you lose something when you lose a relationship.
Yeah.
But I left the first one feeling at peace and fulfilled with the fact that I had given everything I could, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's
good.
Like, you guys were testifying to that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. I don't really have much to... I don't think to comment on that, except, like, how I've seen that play out really similarly with the one other relationship I was in. and how everything was poured into it, and then now seeing the evidences of this relationship I'm in now, and actually other one not pouring in like he said, you know, and feeling less great whenever you came out of it, and then this one pouring way more into it, and just seeing those fruits, you know, just being produced. And I think it was said at service a couple days ago or something, like, you're making fruits. You don't just grow fruit. People got to go eat from them. You know, you don't just produce fruit for it to sit there. You have to produce fruit to give out to other people.
Yeah.
I feel like being able to do that in this relationship and knowing the real reason why has been way better and more, like, intentional
Yeah.
than the past. You
Yeah.
know, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah.
But just to build on that.
And an important thing to point out here, just so my words aren't misinterpreted, is just because you give your all to something doesn't mean that it's going to work out.
Yeah,
You know,
sure, yeah.
that's, I mean, like, Christ gave everything he had and he still died.
Mhm.
You know, so, like, just because you give your all to a relationship doesn't mean the relationship's going to work out. Right?
Yeah.
My favorite, I will die on this hill that La La Land is the best romance movie ever made. And it's because they don't work out at the end. But the lesson that I learned from this movie is that it's easy to look at it like, oh, that's so sad. Neither one of them are happy. They regret not being with each other. But the way I choose to look at it is they're both happy in the relationships that they're in. You guys have seen La La Land, right?
Yeah,
Nope.
I just remember that the ending.
Oh,
was-
okay. He's just
spoiled it.
nodding
I
along.
I
just
just
read
remember
my
the
Bible.
ending.
Oh, I
wasn't-
did just spoil
wasn't
it.
like
I'm so
what
sorry.
I wanted it to be. I
Right.
kind of remember they were in relationships at the end, like
Right.
different relationships.
Well,
Yeah,
she
so-
was.
saw
let's-
each other
okay,
in a bar. or
okay,
something.
so-
Wasn't.
For everyone watching, if you haven't seen La La Land,
It's too late.
I'm sorry. Anyways,
already spoiled it.
it ends
We're
with
live, dude.
Sorry.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna directly spoil it here. So
you ruined it
anyways,
for my grandma.
Yeah.
they like the main guy is playing at this. His dream was to open this piano bar, right?
Ryan
Have his
Gosling.
own. Yeah, Ryan Gosling, the most beautiful man alive, was to open this piano bar and have his own piano bar. And then what was the
Emma
girl's?
Stone wants to
yeah,
be an actress.
she wanted to be an actress, right? And so they both end up the whole for the most of the movie they're together and they're trying to pursue these things together, and they're having all this great adventure. Then they break up, and at the end of the movie, she is married to someone else, and is being an actress, and he is doing his piano bar thing, and she ends up going to the piano bar with her husband on a date night.
But not knowing it's his, right?
Not knowing it's his. And then she sees him, and he, plays their, little song that they have. And then they both, she starts to think of, oh, what would life have been like if he was the one that I was here with, you know? So there's a sequence of her,
Yeah, I remember
getting
this,
getting the house together, getting her stuff ready to go to this piano bar. And it shows her husband moving around, and then so she has these images of instead of him instead of his husband, so everything plays back like that.
Yeah.
But then they leave, and I like to look at that as they're both happy where they are, right? But it tells you that life is not a La La Land, you know.
Yeah.
You could live your life as if you were in a La La Land, but life is not a La La Land, and it's almost better that way, you know?
Kind of goes back to what he was saying about it's not always riding the wave. You know,
Right.
you have to actually be in reality.
Yeah. She is thinking, oh, what could life have been like if I was still in the relationship with this guy or something like that, right? But that's not how it is. And there's a lot of sadness, you know. You could be, oh no.
I remember being more in that spot. when I first
Yeah,
watched
and
it.
when I first watched it, that's where I was. But then the more I watched it, I was like, wait, I feel like there's a deeper cut here,
I
you know.
think also you could look at it as something like that could work out if you weren't so selfish.
That's fair.
Because both of the main characters have to do their own thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of we had a guy on a couple weeks ago, Hayden. He's a youth pastor. He was talking about how you have two different careers. You don't look at one's better than the other. You can't do one because you can integrate them together, and still have these jobs, and still be in a relationship that's under Christ. And it is a worldly depiction. It's a worldly depiction of love,
Mhm.
you know, and selfishness, how that plays in. But I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I like La La Land a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I
He's
definitely
like
remember
giddy.
it.
He's like,
I love because
better
I
than-
love talking about it.
I love.
I love Ryan Gosling.
I've shown it to people and they're like,
Wrestling workout.
I hate that movie. It like it's so sad. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is a beautiful work of
Watch it
Hard.
4 more times and then you'll see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time I watched it, I didn't like it. I just thought it was dumb. I wasn't affected. Second time I watched it, I cried.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what hit. And then I showed it to my sister, and she loved it. And then my mom loved it, and my dad was like, this is stupid. I don't like Ryan Gosling. That's literally how it was.
Mm.
But
It's like that should be one of the
One
cardinal
thing
sins.
I'll add though is like
Yeah.
even if we're like if we're trying to like connect it to like what we've been saying too.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'm being too artsy fartsy with this, but I kind of go back to my point where like any like dying to yourself is like it's not in vain, and so
Mhm.
it's not just for like someone to experience something nice for a moment. Like in art, this is what I love about this faith. It's not a philosophy.
Mhm.
It's not just for peace. You'll have more peace if you don't make it about you. There's truth in that.
Right.
And there are a lot of like philosophies, I guess religions too, that like that is like the very much like a big part of like what it is like for them. And but our goal isn't just like inner peace.
Right.
And so I do think like what's worth like remembering is like we win. Like
Mhm.
we've already won. Like we
Mhm.
win this.
Yeah.
So like when we give, like we're going to win.
Mhm.
But it's like everyone's got to do it, you know.
Right.
And so that's like a thing too, where like unlike with this movie though, it's like it's true like you know. Trying to think how to fully relate it, but basically what I'm trying to say is it doesn't end with like not getting what needs to be done, like, or it doesn't end with not getting what you want, because
Right.
the closer you get to Christ, like you want what He wants, and He's
Mhm.
already won, and so you do get what you want, and so
Mhm.
like your sacrifice is like never in vain, which is like the best,
Right.
It's like it's the best team to be on,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I would say I make the claim that it's the best romance movie because I would also say that it is the most realistic representation of a romance movie, because all
Yeah.
other romance movies is like, heard somebody say this, it's like you look at a rom-com. It was Jason Segel said
yeah,
this.
yeah,
He hates rom-coms because the guy on the poster is going to end up with the girl on the poster.
Mhm.
And that's how it is. They're going to have like this long drawn out hour and a half, 2 hour excursion where they break up and they get back together and then they die with each other because one of them has Alzheimer's.
yeah.
Just spoiled the end of the Notebook too.
You didn't spoil it until you tagged it.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one.
I just watched The Chosen, so I don't know any of these movies.
Yeah.
But anyways, my
Chosen's a love story.
my point being that you have all of these romance movies where it's like they have this long, complicated, drawn out romance where it gives us the idea of like romance,
Mhm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have La La Land where it is a romance movie, but then at the end, it's like, yeah, she got married, had kids, has a family, where she's happy, but it's not with the person that she had this long drawn out like romance with. And so it's like, how many people do you know that have a romance story like The Notebook or like something like that? You
Yeah.
know, it's like that's what we want. That's what our picture.
Yeah, it's fun
Of-
to see.
That's what our picture of love and romance is. When in reality, what love and romance really is this, right?
Mm.
Mm.
This is what we should be looking at. Yeah, because the Bible is really like the greatest love story ever written.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've literally been waiting for you to say like how La La Land is like the way Christ goes to church, and I thought you were gonna tie it in like somehow, and I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Yeah, I've been waiting to figure out how I'm gonna say like The Passion of the Christ is my favorite romance movie or something. But it is true. I think truth and love are a person, and this whole it's a thick book. It's like it's about our Savior. Even the oldest of things pointing to Him in the way that He would give of Himself unto death, so that He actually leaves us so that we can have His Spirit, so we can have a greater like bridge to the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and it's not even incredibly some mystical thing that it didn't hurt Christ, or that He, He's God. So what, did He even like have to emotionally be there? Like, was it actually painful for Him, or like hard, or is it really like this love story thing? And like Hebrews says the opposite, that like our high priest knows exactly like what we go through. And so as like goofy it is, like, oh, this is the best love story. Like it's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually true. So join the priesthood. You don't need women, because it's already been we win.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good.
And I haven't seen Passion of the Christ, so please don't spoil that either.
Oh.
Because just watch The Chosen and you'll figure out the Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
Passion of the Christ was the Mel Gibson one, right?
Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
So I haven't seen it either, so I can't.
He's
spoil
doing 2 sequels to that.
Spoiler
We'll
alert.
see.
It's
They're
a
planning for his.
Part
I'm waiting
one.
for him to do like.
He's doing like a part 1, part 2 resurrection series, and part 1 is literally, I think it's based on a lot of Catholic canon about him going into Abraham's bosom, and he like goes and just disciples to like Abraham and
Yeah, he
Moses
told
and
me about
stuff.
this, yeah.
I don't know how that. I don't understand that. And then I
Yeah.
think the second part is like the resurrection and him coming to visit the disciples and Mary and stuff. But I think it's really Catholic based. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know the Catholic stuff and all the DLC and everything. But
I would love to get somebody that was Catholic.
I would too. I want to know more about it.
Because I have never gotten to sit down and have a conversation with someone that is like truly Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Careful.
You truly
What?
Catholic?
No.
Not the fake Catholic.
Like a devout, Yeah.
Do you think they say that about Baptist people? Like, I
Probably.
want to sit down with like an actual Baptist, a devout Baptist.
There's a
Maybe.
lot of...
I
doubt it.
I want to hear that conversation for sure.
Yeah. This alternate timeline where we're Catholic and we're like, dude, I just wish like a
talk
real
to a
Lutheran
Baptist.
would get on here.
Someone real.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you look at the Bible, you see, like from the very beginning, like it's a somebody told me this like a long time ago, and it stuck with me, is that the Bible is a story of us messing up and God, or it's a story of us getting ourselves into a bad situation and God continuously pulling us out of it at His own expense.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, if that's not a love story, then I don't know what is,
Yeah.
right? Because we've just been like talking about how love is, sacrificial, and it's not about like what you get out of it, but what the other person gets out of it.
Yeah.
What is God getting out of dying for us on a cross? Like what? Like in reality, like what do we have to give to God, except our there's the song that's all gratitude. All my words fall short.
Yeah.
All I have is a hallelujah.
Sing it, dude.
All right. Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that.
Are you asking the question, or are you gonna like about to answer that question? Like, what does God gain or anything? Or are you asking the question?
I mean, like, there's nothing that we have. Like we unless you have something.
I do think God delights in being close to His children.
Yes, yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I think
He gets
as far as like I don't want to get like too Calvinist or something to say that like we are worms and like God just please spare me. Like it's like He delights in being close to us.
Right.
And so the whole thing of like yeah, dude, what can we possibly gain from a God who has everything, can have everything? What does he gain by giving of His Son for us? And I think of like, almost think of teaching someone how to edit a short film. I have a film degree, and so like if say I'm like senior year, if a freshman right out of high school who didn't have the same chances to like learn a bunch of things about videography and whatnot, like comes to me and asks if they can like help edit something to learn more, to get experience, it's probably going to take like 5 times as long to get something done. Or I'm probably going to have to go back and like make a ton of changes like once they're done having their hand at it or something. But with a proper frame of reference, assuming I've placed myself in a position where I'm not trying to pull off a buzzer beater to turn in my film, it's a joy to give of myself, understanding that what they learn is a part of their passion that they can begin to perfect to then pass on to somebody else.
Right.
It's like, I do think God, it is weird language to say like, oh, God gains this, but it's, there is something to the fact that he delights in saying like, he could just fix our situation.
Yeah.
He could again say like, I'm tired of watching all this happen. Like, let me just bring my kids home, and then like, whatever. We're all on the bus, on the Fortnite bus, and like we're up in heaven. But there is something special to like him choosing us broken little booger eaters to do something that he could just bam.
Yeah.
And so, dude, I just feel like I need to see La La Land because I'm like, dude, that is like really special. That is really special.
Yeah.
And the director might not have intended any of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, he's sitting there watching this like,
it might literally.
this guy's way better at this than I am.
It might literally just be my own take, but I watched it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is deep.
I never thought of it that deeply, honestly.
It's pretty deep.
I guess the point I was making is like when what we get out of God sacrificing himself is salvation.
Mm-hmm.
But like on a fundamental level, like what does God get out of it? It does it like
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, it's like if we were to sacrifice ourselves for God, it's like God doesn't get salvation because we sacrificed ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, and
Yeah.
it's like sacrificing knowing that you're going to get something out of it and sacrificing because you're going to get something out of it are two different things.
Sure.
I think, I know where you're coming from. Like, you can't give something finite to something infinite.
Yeah.
Unless it's something infinite like praise, I think is that where you're coming from, kind of?
I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, that makes
These are
sense.
just things that I've like,
Yeah.
it's like the shower thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Just like,
You're standing there for 20 minutes just staring at the wall.
yeah, and then you realize like the water's getting cold and you're like, oh,
dang it.
Pay my water bill.
Yet. You've been winning a theological debate in your head for 20 minutes.
I do that all the time, bro.
Me too, man.
Yeah, dude, I have the exact answer for the problem of evil, dude. I wish somebody would ask me.
And then you like, you're like,
read your Bible, idiot.
and then you step out of your shower, and it's like you're just feeling so good about yourself, and you like go to your roommate and you're like, hey man, this is what I just thought of, and then they ask you a question and it just completely stumps everything.
Yeah.
You just
You're like, I'll ask my youth pastor.
you're just like,
Dude.
and then they're like, yeah, I'm
take
gonna go.
another shower. Yeah. Give me a second.
I'm gonna go. I gotta go.
Shower again.
Dude,
Maybe
this
if you
really
come with me, I can tell you when I think of it.
Yeah, let's shower together, Dad. Tell me, bro. I get something really good.
Dude, this literally happened like a week ago.
Shower.
My last shower was a week ago.
One-on-ones, bro.
I was thinking of a random theology thing of like trying to articulate the Trinity more deeply than just saying like, oh yeah, one God, 3 persons, because you can unpack that much more deeply than just to say it that plainly. And it kind of like, I thought it had really awesomely dawned on me that God is like water that can have the same essence in 3 different substances. And I was like, dude, that is like I just changed apologetics forever. And literally, on a podcast I listened to like 3 days ago, these real apologists are speaking of how that metaphor literally breaks down into one of the most common heresies ever. And I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't post that on YouTube like as fast as possible. Guys, listen.
Was it Mike Winger and Wesley Huff?
Yeah, it
Dude,
was.
Yeah. I watched that the other day.
How it literally like breaks down into modalism because steam or water vapor can become liquid water, can become ice, whatever. And I was like, yeah, dude, this is why I don't have a YouTube channel.
Day three of saying Wesley Huff on the podcast until he comes on the podcast.
You guys said on the last one too.
That's when we should have said it on. I don't think we talked about him at all.
No, probably didn't.
Hey Wes, when you find this,
respond to Grant's DM, please.
We will pay for your plane ticket to get here.
Oh, okay.
You can stay in my dorm. You can stay in my dorm. I swear.
No,
the
I would
host
do
of
it,
this
bro.
podcast.
I would actually pay, like, genuinely.
If it were actually on the table, I would absolutely help.
I would
pay
try
for
to.
this
Yeah, I want to just be able
I'd
to be
support
like,
race for that. That'd be crazy.
sick.
You can have the twin bed in my guest room.
Please.
My dog is nice.
Would you want to like watch it? Like we would just sit on this little desk thing, like just with our feet dangling.
Yeah,
like, watch
up there. It would be so.
Be like
hot here.
Jamie and be like, "Hey, Mitchie,
Yeah.
look this up."
We
Just
put,
like-
you have to put a TV right here.
But like
Talk about clips.
instead of having like this elaborate computer setup, it's just you sitting on the shelf with your iPhone.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hold on, give me a
Instagram
second.
Live.
It's
Wesley,
buffering.
please fund us a new studio so we can have actual setup.
What do you, I don't know. What do you think is somebody's reaction would be if you're like, come be on my podcast, I'll cover everything, and they're like, oh, this is a pretty big deal, and then they walk into the Stanley Russell lab. And we're recording on 2 different laptops.
I got the ring lights.
Yeah.
And the
They can't
HyperX Quadcast.
like see the beauty of filmmaking is that nobody can see what's behind the camera, because if they could, they would. Not that we're doing this, not that this is what's going on right now, but like
yeah.
theoretically, like someone could use the box for a car jack
Yeah.
to prop up the webcam.
Yeah.
Because the tripod that they had was too tall to be face level.
Yeah.
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 Somebody could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Y'all would never do that because y'all
No.
are like
No.
respected.
No. And if someone were to
No.
come in here and look, I mean,
Professionals.
they'd see 2 tripods and.
Yeah.
But.
And people manning the cameras behind them. So
Yeah.
guys,
Yes.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't use the box on that camera.
Yeah. And they wouldn't have tables and chairs like these. They'd probably
Yeah.
have actual wooden tables. And
I mean, this is vintage stuff.
this is, yeah.
Yeah, I've been messing with like the rips on my side.
I don't know.
That was probably from me back in like Thanksgiving
I don't know.
2012.
I don't know
We're
if
just,
like
taking them off at the
2010 is
kids' table.
considered vintage.
Maybe. Did y'all have kids' tables at your Thanksgivings? Like
Yes.
Yes, of course.
as adults?
This is actually the first year I wasn't at the kids' table during Christmas.
Dude, let's
That
go.
sucks, actually.
Congrats, man.
Well, it was like, not because I like graduated into awesomehood. We like my brother didn't come to Christmas. It was just like weird stuff that we all fit around the normal
Mhm.
table, and I was like, this actually kind of sucks.
Mhm.
It's like my cousin's kids, like they're 3 years old, and like they're at the table with me, and I'm like, it's just,
I hate you.
yeah, I hate you. Eat your stupid baby food.
That's funny. Dude, you need to hurry up and make your own kids' table.
It's a challenge.
Speed run? No.
Speed run of fatherhood.
Hey, when this podcast takes off, like if I'll be able to have kids quicker if we can get some revenue going.
Please, Wesley Huff.
Yeah, Wes.
Respond to our
dude.
DM.
Yeah.
Has he responded?
No.
Dang, bro. Almost there.
Almost
made it.
there. Okay.
It-
Episode 3. Almost there.
Well, you know, he'll eventually get over his Joe Rogan money, and he'll need a gig,
Yeah.
and we'll be
Okay. Yeah.
We got
absolutely.
everything to pay him.
yeah.
What
Very-
would you do if Joe Rogan like DM'd you?
Can I be on your podcast?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'd be like,
I don't know.
Would you
Probably not.
question? Would you question if it's him?
No, that's Joe Rogan.
Okay.
If he's DMing me, it's Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I would probably say, yeah, sure, but like,
I have class. At
I'm gonna-
9:40.
I'm gonna like, if we're gonna do this, like,
Can we go to you,
can we,
please?
can we use your studio?
Yeah.
He's
Like-
like, no, but like, dang it. I really love y'all's studio. It's so humble and reminds me of the good old days.
I'd be like, okay, but can you bring your cameras
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and your
gears.
microphones
The thing about
and your Jamie?
Your setup's not that fancy.
yeah, the thing about this, I'm not trying to sound all
Dude.
way and everything, but it's
Dude.
Fisherman's Dwellings, the title.
Yeah.
And when you
it's a
go
sick
to
title.
Capernaum, you don't see, or is that how it's pronounced? Capernaum?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't go there to go see the most famous fishermen of all time. You just overlook the fishermen. They're quiet people, and I'm not saying we're the most humble people ever. It's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I'd say that.
We're actually
yeah. But being fishermen, their goal isn't to be super popular, and even we say, if this gets one viewer or 10,000, that's not the goal. As long as the right person is reached by a conversation like this, somebody who's been struggling with marriage, or somebody who's been struggling with living up to manhood, not knowing what that looks like. I feel like the right audience is who needs to see that rather than the masses. Maybe the masses will be the right audience someday. But
Yeah, that's good. I like
feel
that, and I think it's a sick name.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's all him.
Yeah.
that is definitely better than the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Fisherman's Dwelling. That's we need to upgrade to a cave or something.
Like an ice fishing
Yeah,
lodge with
dude.
a big old table with a hole in the middle.
Oh, that'd be
and
sick.
pull out the guest and they're
Maybe one day if it really takes off, we'll get a small little houseboat.
Oh,
that'd
that'd
be
actually
cool.
be pretty cool.
I
That would
forgot
be
you
really
mentioned
sick.
that.
That would be
Oh,
really
that's-
sick. And we do it
Those are cheaper than
every
you think.
every time we get a guest to come on, we just
make them sway.
we're like, hey, pull up to the dock at this place, and they come, and then we just take the boat out a little ways, and then we do the whole
Take them to our
podcast on the
island.
boat.
Dude, imagine
I think that'd be really sick.
imagine actually.
Cut the cameras.
Our fishing island.
Johnny.
Wait, what was that cameraman?
That's Johnny. That's
Oh.
that's Billy.
When did we decide that?
Two
I thought
J names.
Jerry.
Jerry. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care about. Don't care.
There's
about
so many
names.
people back there
Yeah.
in production.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, this is actually filmed in a live studio audience.
Yeah.
That's what the laugh
Laugh.
tracks are.
It's just
Yeah.
a grandma. Grandma.
We're
That
not
would be
taking any
really cool.
questions right now.
Yep. Security.
Here's a question for the film majors: if you film on a boat and you're filming with two angles, would the cameras be moving too, or would it cancel it out because it's steady and everything's moving? Would it look still, or would you have to get a gimbal to do that?
You're assuming.
That's not a question for a film major. That's a question for a boat guy.
Dude, that's a question for a
Bro.
physicist.
I don't know, because I can't answer that myself.
There's only gonna be one shot up at a time. So if this one looks rocky, when you cut, the other one's still gonna look rocky.
I know, but if they're both, can you tell the camera's moving if the camera and the boat are both moving?
Well, if you have a
Wait.
gimbal, right? If you have a gimbal, the idea that a gimbal is that the camera stays here
Yeah.
and the gimbal can move around. So if the boat's doing all of
But
this,
without a gimbal, what would it be like?
without a gimbal, hold on.
Because if the whole boat's moving, can you tell that everything is moving?
Yeah.
Man,
Yes.
I just don't think about it like that. I don't know.
Yes.
My understanding of water
But the
is
camera's
way too
moving too.
elementary.
Yes. So if you watch
This is why you need
if the
GoPros.
boat rocks backwards and the camera's literally going forward with it,
Yeah.
See this what the predicament we're in
so you
here
can see.
right now.
Wait.
This is the secular equivalent of over spiritualizing your life.
I don't want to be too religious, bro.
Okay. We won't take you on any boats anytime soon. Don't worry. Don't worry about that in 30 years.
I like experimental faith in film.
Okay. This is actually a 4:3 ratio podcast, and we don't use.
Is
the
it
rule
black
of
and
thirds.
white?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
And
4:3
this
and
is
black
all
we
and
put
white.
cinematic black bars on the.
yeah.
That's
It's not
like
even like the ratio of the camera. We just got them from Google.
that's like a joke we always have, making
We
something
use-
artsy and cinematic. It's you put in 4x3, but then you also put black bars, which is
It's like 16
Little
by 9, but small.
Yeah, exactly.
We used to do that, didn't we?
We didn't do the square, but we would put the black bars over it.
Yeah.
that's-
That would be
That's the best trick in the book.
that would be
just
part
going to
of the
projects
editing
and-
process.
Yeah.
Would be to put the black
That-
we'd
at the
be
very
That's like the sprinkle. Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
create a
Yeah.
new video
Oh, this is sick.
later, and then.
we'd be making a short film, and we're like, oh, it looks great, and he's like, yeah, I still have to put the black bars on it though.
It's like, what does that mean?
He's like, yeah, when you're in a movie theater and there's the two black bars, yeah, I have to add those in, and then you learn that it's
You're not supposed. You'll make a film professor tweak if you
Yeah.
tell him that was added in post.
Yeah.
What? I mean, the aspect ratio. Yeah, and then you start getting into like aspect
Yeah.
ratio, and then you're like, wait, those are just like supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I just add this PNG of black bars instead of making things complicated?
Yeah. I'm glad I learned that in high school. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to learn here. But
After we made a couple of short films.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you which ones they are, though, because
All of them.
all of them.
Yeah.
What did film school look like for y'all? Like, what's you think the most you got out of it? You know?
The most I got out of film school.
Yeah.
That it was really nice to not have real homework.
Rub it in.
Yeah. That it was watching, getting to create was fun. Watching movies for homework, really the most difficult thing I ever did was have to write a paper about a movie.
8-page.
Gendarme.
They write themselves. I didn't love film school for like the passion project of I can come here, I can network with people, I can kind of hone my craft, I can get a few scripts in my pocket and maybe like figure out like LA or like local kind of scene. I was much more of a videography guy, live production stuff. So film school was like nice to not add any stress to me really, but I wasn't much of a fan of the film world.
Yeah, I think for me, and I've been, I think the language that I use to like say when I speak of things in hindsight, it's never the language I use in the moment.
Oh yeah.
But like I've talked about whether it's like ministry or even my faith, like being a sandbox. I feel like film school was the first like time I felt like I was in a sandbox because I remember I didn't want to do school, which I think part of that, like, I guess school's not for everybody, but I do think a part of me needed to like have like what we talked about, like have a little bit more like vision into the future, you know. But I remember like the thing I was the most excited about film school was like the opportunity to like do what I finally wanted to do and do like really anything I wanted to. So I mean, I've only been to one film school, but the film school here is like, I mean,
At USC.
Yeah.
Here at-
Cal Arts, yeah. I mean, it was great. I feel like I got to, but also like, I mean, this film program is like pretty slept on. Like it's got some great
definitely.
professors.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But one thing I realized too in film school, and I realized about myself too, is there's two kinds of like artists. There's like, and both of them have abilities. And there's one that's an imitator, and there's one that's an innovator. And like, which one are you going to be? And that's like what I was like. And I mean, I felt the temptations to imitate because you're like, man, like I just want to make something like that. And when you get something that kind of looks like that, whether it's the way you color it or the aspect ratio you use, or maybe like the lens you use, it like feels good because it looks like the thing that you love to watch, that you consume.
Getting all the views or
But it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't be making it about that. Like, in, this might be making it deep, but whether you're a film major or whatever the heck you are, you want to like be adding something. You want to be putting yourself into something that's going to be adding, not to just replicate. Because there are some people that made some good looking stuff. Because I've seen this. And I don't even know what this is about. Like it just like looked kind of good, but I like don't know what this is about. And my stuff wasn't void of that, but I never wanted it to be something that was already made, and I can make something new, Which I think you do that well. Like you're a good writer with that kind of stuff. Like you're not just trying to imitate. Like there's a difference between imitating and being inspired. Everyone's inspired. It's good to be inspired, but to actually tell a story in the way that like with using the gifts God gave you and the experience God's given you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's pretty vibes. I know we know, but like for the conversation, how do you still apply that degree? In what you're doing now. And like what do you hope for if you hope to use that more?
I think less of like my just having the bachelor's degree of like digital filmmaking. I think less about like the power of the piece of paper versus like what it's like to desire creativity, which I think like kind of the desire to create is probably similar to like our innate desire to build something, because we're all like representations of God's image to like also create, and so I interact much more with kind of that side of things. I don't think this might be the reason you guys started this podcast, is like the desire to produce, not just consume. And
You sent me a video of it, talking about that. So.
He sent me that video.
Oh.
And so I think much more about the desire to not have like my mind clogged like by other voices, or like, because I was definitely the guy that was. It was less of the movies I watched and more of like the Casey Neistats and the Justin Escalonas that were like making cool vlogs and stuff of like, oh, I want to make their stuff, and I became so much more. It was a race to see who could be the first person to imitate, instead of, I think when I my first year of ministry did a massive like consecration of media, and noticed that I became way more creative when the less I consumed of like other people's creativity, like watched way less of creative people doing their thing, and in turn like I became more creative, started becoming an ideas guy, which I always thought I was like, I need to hear someone else's vision, and I know what I need to do with the camera or with the computer to make it happen. And so your original question being like, what would I like advice for people of like how I would use the degree if I had the chance?
Sure, or if you have any personal desire, just like however you want to answer that.
Okay, then I'm going to continue down my rabbit hole.
So
that's much more the value I feel is like that I would continue with is, it is actually a really sweet thing to be surrounded by people that want to create, that want to build something, and that will actually like invest their own resources or like do what it takes to pull late hours I've pulled those late hours trying to be a producer and cast people, find locations, and to put something together in that way, simply for the sake of like, I see the thing at the end that I'm working towards. And so to trace that back 10 steps, what do I have to do? Like, what do we all need to do, play our part, like to get there, as a much more valuable like idea, I guess, that I hold to and I like now, is not wanting to thwart my like innate sense of wanting to create by just consuming. So yeah, I don't even know. I think my degree is up in a closet somewhere. My wife's doctorate is on display because I'm proud of her. My degree is
I don't know where mine is.
Yeah. So that I think is like if I had to look back and think of what could I use with that film degree moving forward, it is remembering what it can be to engage with creativity properly and with passion, not be void of passion in my life, to dream big, to realize that oftentimes the worst thing you'll hear is no, and not actually have to face real adversity. If you think about it, it's honestly, it's kind of like discipleship, especially on an American campus. It's like, if I feel like I want to talk to a student but I'm nervous or something, I'm really, the only thing I am afraid of is an awkward conversation. That's kind of how I like think about it. You might actually be surprised when you decide to produce instead of create, or instead of consume, that you could get revenue benefits if it takes off or whatever, but I think you'll actually just find that putting your hands to something and not stifling a passion is worth all of it.
Yeah.
I think I just said the same thing 80 times, but
That's okay. We're external processors around here.
definitely.
I feel like that's like
definitely.
every time I open my mouth, I've never said anything different than the first time I've opened
Yeah.
my mouth. It's just always the same thing.
Dude, that is literally me to a T. It's like I'll be talking and I'll say something, and then somebody else will say something, and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, I just thought of something. And I'll say the exact thing that I said before, but I'll just say it in a different way.
Yeah,
Same.
that's my life.
I'll like restate something somebody's already said
Yeah.
on accident, you know?
Like, I just want to talk, dude.
Yeah.
It's like you like everyone in the rooms like individually comes to the same epiphany
Yeah.
at different points in the conversation.
Yeah.
And but each time they come to it, they're all just like, dude, that's a great idea.
That's a great
because they each say it in a different way. But it's this, anyways.
Yeah.
That's funny.
What was that?
Because it's just got really silent after you said that.
Yeah.
Because we're all thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Colt, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of a little bit coming from what I've already said. I think the way I've articulated it before is with what I do now, like in college, like I said, I was figuring out how to be more innovative. You know, not really inventing something new, but bringing something new to the table, or bringing something that like changes something. That's what I was trying to figure out. And I would say like obvious, and we do like in a practical sense, in a physical sense, we do use like we help with like the video stuff, like
From the
within the
ministry.
ministry, and like we're working on a podcast thing too. Rising tide, baby. But we do that, and I think we definitely both love that stuff, and so it feels like when we get the opportunity, it actually feels a little special because it's like we don't do it all the time, but when we get to, like, we still like love like that stuff. But what I've even told people that like family that supports me, which my family is really supportive, and is even supportive of the fact that I study film, which doesn't always seem like to be the case. But they'll ask things, and from a good heart, like, well, like, why aren't you, like, you got this degree, like, don't you want to use it? And like I've thought about it for a second, and I'm like, and I'll tell them, like, if what you're worried about is something being wasted, then let me tell you, there's no need to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I am. Like, I feel like the thing that I was doing, now maybe I don't have a job that's that, but the thing that I was trying to do in college with, and I really did learn that. It's not like a side thing I learned. Like, in film school, I was learning how to tell a story that wasn't just imitating, but telling something that mattered. That's what I do on campus every day, or want to do and try to do, is tell like the greatest story, you know, like the story that actually matters, like that's just not like a random thing, you know. And so like in a lot of ways, like I feel like that does like carry into what I do now is as the story becomes more real to me, then I tell it to others, and the story is real when it is like something that's true, like in your own life, you know what I mean? And so people know like if you're just saying something, you might fool a few people, but people know. But people also know, like I told this to someone the other day, like there's something unattractive about like when someone's like trying to sound like super deep and something like I have to like throw out of my mind sometimes. But then you get that guy, like, in a Christian setting, of course, that's like, you know, I get that guy that says something like, sounds really deep. You're like, hey, I think I know what you're saying. I think you could have said it with 80% less words.
Yeah.
But, kind of like what I'm doing right now. But then you get that one guy that's like, yeah, man, like, I just know that, like, God's really good, and I'm going to keep believing that. And you hear that, and you're like, dang, that was good. You know what I mean? Like,
he's like, what? What did I say?
Yeah. So it's like when it's real to you, it's like it's not the words, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like film school. It's like it's not about having all the fancy stuff, blah blah blah. Like it was about like telling the story that actually like was piercing, and like that's the same thing with ministry, and it's like, and like I said in the very beginning, kind of like wrapping things, is like that I want, like, you can live. Because of the ecosystem, the atmosphere of a college campus, like you're living life with people, and they're living life with each other, and they're discipling each other, and so you just share, and they see your life. You don't just have to say this thing. they go play dodgeball with you or something like the next day, like in the gym, and they watch you like play differently than the other guys on your team or something, or whatever it is. Like they see that you're not always going out like just doing like stupid stuff. Like you're living your life differently with people that love to be around you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I figure we should probably wrap up here in a little bit because we're running a little over 2 hours. But do you guys want to plug Rising Tide so we can link it in the bottom? Just talk about like what producing that looks like and what helping out what that looks like.
this podcast about surfing.
It's a podcast about the wave reaching the
talk
shore.
a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Rising Tide is attempting to I guess bridge the gap for, especially in our context of campus ministry. It's difficult to watch students graduate and struggle to find community, belonging, purpose after they spent 4 years falling in love with the Lord in that context, like with their peers. And really, you have to say, like, dude, I've loved living this life with you. I hope you get plugged into that good church and that, like, life's good to you. And so finding a discontentment with that and wanting to continue to live life with young men, inspire even older men like that do have families, that do have kids. How can it be shown that there's more to life than just the 9 to 5, or there's more life than just like having kids, but how do you disciple your families? Whatever stage you're in, there is room for you to give more of yourself to the kingdom of God, to be discipled and to disciple. And so Rising Tide is all about how can we as men turn the tide, stop losing in our homes or in education or in government, or on Sunday mornings when church or idea of being a godly person becomes marginal and just about church attendance. How can we start to not win in a sense of like we have more numbers than the atheists, but Christ handled death on the cross. But how can we inspire men to partake in full life on this side of eternity and understand that pouring our lives out as drink offerings, give of ourselves fully to our wives, our kids, the young men around us, how can that become a priority? And in our context, it just happens to be like watching young 22-year-olds graduate, move on. How can we still be there for them without just like giving them a slap on the butt and saying like, good luck, dude, I loved you. And so just wanting everything to be cohesive, of being able to see down the road when my wife and I have our forever home and we've got great grandkids and we're on our back porch holding hands, swinging, feeding ducks, like whatever it is, what is the legacy like we want to have left behind as we head into the other side of eternity? How can we track that all the way back to what resolve can I have, hope can I have, that when I do as a student leave this ministry that I've fallen in love with, how can I see the hope and take action to take care of myself, to fall more in love with Jesus every day and figure out how to truly build, to fight, to defend honor and die. And so part of that, to get back to it, we're producing a podcast for whatever Rising Tide becomes. Again, part of it is we're going to engage with discipleship as creatively as possible. Can we enter into a world of business coaching where we can help companies run on kingdom principles? Can we engage in a world of sports coaching where families from all over are always signing their kids up to play baseball, to have one-on-one coaching to further develop their skills? And how amazing would it be if coaches, like, if parents could just say, like, I would love for my kids to be intentionally poured into by like their heroes, like these guys that have played college baseball, or then even like with media, how can we have a spirit-filled, like, inspiring podcast to reach people like from every corner of the globe, almost as though it's like definitely not on this level, but the way Paul probably thought of his epistles, where he wasn't thinking of like, dang, I just signed my name off on canonized scripture. He was like, there's either a problem here I want to address, or an affirmation that needs to be said, but it was a focus on people and how people can be reminded of the way things ought to be. And so that's what we're hopeful to do with our role specifically right now, the production of this podcast, and how it can be done excellently. Not that this isn't excellent. I love you guys back there behind the cameras.
Thanks for coming out today, by the way, guys.
Thanks, Grandma.
But to use our degrees to put our hands to something that we know is eternal. The work is eternal, even if it's with media. It's been probably the most fulfilling way to like directly see, I guess, what my degree can be used for. So I think you'd probably know better what like all of our handles are and things like that for anyone that wants to check out pages.
Yeah, I mean, with YouTube, actually I'll say this first. I'll just add a little thing.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, and Mitchell said it like really, really well. But something like that's becoming more real to me and is very much like the heartbeat of this, and I would say it's the heartbeat of what y'all are talking about too, which is really awesome, is Christianity is about living devoted lives and changing culture. And sometimes there can be this reality where it is just about like you, but it is about changing the things around you and like changing the tide, and so just wanted to add that too. Like that's the hope for the podcast, and whatever Rising Tide becomes beyond that. But we're Rising Tide podcast on YouTube, and Rising Tide Life podcast on Spotify. Then Instagram is Rising Tide.
The Instagram is Rising Tide Life. Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah, and the logo is like a triangle. Like whoa. Didn't figure out.
Illuminati.
No.
That's cool.
So you take that out.
And we just got taken offline.
Sweet.
We're down.
Yeah. But thanks for letting us plug it.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Episode 3 coming soon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you guys before we get out of here. It's a question I ask every time for all of our guests, just because I'm very big about, we're doing this podcast, we're having conversations. Not all of it has to be spiritual stuff, but like every single episode, I want the gospel to be shared. Like every single episode. So I always like to ask this question: if someone asks you what the gospel was, what are you saying? Like,
this random guy comes up to you on the street.
Random guy.
Slap him with the Bible. Read that book.
Does he have? How much time does he have? Is it an elevator pitch, or he's got?
I would say
give him the elevator pitch. Yeah.
Okay.
We had Hayden do it in a sentence, but we'll give you just an elevator time, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Jimmy Fallon. You gotta tell him about the gospel.
I'm imagining
If he laughs at me, I'm gonna punch him.
my SNL cold open where I'm like reading the monitor.
Yeah.
There was a dream that was Rome.
What? Gotta be.
One day.
Okay, I'm just gonna go for it.
Go for it.
Send it.
Love. No.
La La Land.
That's it.
Holy
Done.
crap.
We're out.
You ever see La La Land?
That's the gospel.
That's basically gospel. Okay, I think Mitchell's definitely gonna do like a sexy job with his wordsmithing, but what I would probably start with is like there's an end to striving. There's an end to having to figure everything out. And the gospel is the opportunity to let go and to take on freedom and to have your life transformed and to find a real life that is beyond the one that you're trying to strive for. And there's one person, Christ, who has bought that for you. And because I know, like, for myself too, like, it's impossible to, like, it felt impossible to get over the fact that, like, I can't do it because I want to do something. And to realize to not ignore that that's in you, that doesn't have to leave, but to know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from God. Like, the pursuit of God is put in you. And so everything you do, whether it is to read this book or to go to a crystal and hope that it heals your back pain, whatever you do is to respond to the pursuit that God's put in you. And so when you realize that it is Christ and what he's bought for you, then you have divine experience with God. And then I would say too, like, the last thing, like, I'll add to it as well, like, what the gospel is it's invitation into purpose as well, which has been one of the greatest things for me. I'd probably share this little quick story too, is I remember when things were becoming real to me and God was speaking to me, changing my life. As each day I lived a life of obedience, I was trying to do that and watching my life change. I remember being on campus as a student, just walking around. I was listening to some song and closed my eyes, and I was picturing something, and what I pictured was I guess heaven. I was in some kind of space like that, and I walked up in a suit of armor, and I got on one knee, and I think I maybe had a sword like this, and I looked up. And I was looking at God. It was like some big man, like someone important. It wasn't just like
it was
Steve
Dwayne
Buscemi or
Johnson.
something.
It was God.
It was Dwayne Johnson.
Obama.
It was Donald Trump. No, but it was God. And I remember he didn't say anything. He just like looked around me, and then it made me like look around myself too, and nothing was there. And I didn't feel like condemnation, but I did feel like an invitation to bring others along with me. And so, like, the gospel is also this invitation into having a heart like God. So that's what I'd say. It's good. If we
It's a
were in
long
an elevator and
Yeah, that's what I was-
we're going to the 72nd.
That's what I was thinking. If I have one floor with someone, then I'm reciting John 3:16. I think is what would happen.
When all else fails, turn to Scripture.
Yeah. To enter, yes, 'cause that's way better than I could think of. But if you think of, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him will not perish but have eternal life. That's way more important of a verse than Awana's club at my church led me to believe. To let someone know that our preeminent, loving, all-knowing Creator God was wanted to glorify himself, to create us in his image, to decide that it's not even good to be by itself, but to split it into two, to have hope that they would be fruitful and multiply. Adam and Eve living in a beautiful garden, knowing who their God was, walking in the cool of the day with them, chose to rebel, and that became the trend of what we talked about earlier. Of it always seems like God's got to play, clean up. God's people repent, but then give it enough years and they goof again. And so I can just imagine the Father and the Son doing business together up in heaven, and getting to imagine the Son at the right hand of the Father, and they're looking down, and they're seeing things like Abraham choose the flesh of Hagar, or to see Samson screw a bunch of stuff up, and I watched them doing business together, and you even hear you even get to see awesome stories of the angel of the Lord getting to go down to meet his people, and so I can just imagine how much intent, but also joy is in that way of the Father and Son together through creation, through the toil of their people, are together. And you can get weird with the language of, well, was the garden plan A or was Christ plan A? And it's I think God had the ultimate intention, to send his Son to die for us. I don't think that anything about what we're doing is like the backup plan.
Yeah.
But so I believe that in perfect love, if the Father sent His Son is like knowing that He would suffer to save a broken people, and not in a way of like I think a lot of damage can be done by just hearing like God loves you the way you are, because I think a gospel absent of repentance is no gospel at all. I think the Christ came like to cleanse us, to lead us into a life that says, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me, which we know is an invitation into life, though it's an invitation into death. And God loved us so much that God is not absent of emotion. Like when the Son was sent, like He watched His Son suffer and understood and felt it. Like our God is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And for even the Son, like to be fully God, fully man, He still had temptations. He still had choices like to make. That perfect God like came to offer those things that Colt was talking about, of like you don't have to toil anymore. You don't have to deal with strife, but it doesn't come without the denial of yourself and like full submission to the one that ultimately came beneath us and like came to serve and not to be served. So I think that's the leading up part, but also the mission moving forward is that once you've tasted and seen, there's a therefore go and make disciples of all nations and baptize them, teach them the commands that you've been given. And so I think the gospel is like to I think there's a lot of value in this, but it's kind of goofy, like the ABCs of like being saved. It's like admit that you're a sinner, like turn away from it, believe that Christ died on the cross like for your sins, hung on a tree for resurrected 3 days later, ascended into heaven after being seen by 500 eyewitnesses. Like the gospel is something of life change, of repentance, of salvation. It's a beautiful mission, not something to just sit on. I hope that hits the basis.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a shower and I'd be like,
That's exactly what
Yeah.
I
No,
do
but
too, bro.
I was glad you spoke to like if random man comes up to me and it's elevator pitch, maybe knows nothing, he probably knows what church is, like that's what I want to tell him is like, how can I give you this story and understand that it matters? And it's not just within the bounds of this fake leather cover, but there's a mission moving forward until the day that Christ returns.
Yeah.
That's probably what I tell him. If I'm dealing with a student who is clearly like hungry, clinging on to what I'm saying, and like their heart is malleable, and they're looking for like the how can I be sure, like what will I truly experience if I give this God thing a try? That may be my answer of like maybe you're still poking the gospel with a stick or like this faith life like from afar. And you know the general Easter story. It's like if you want me to look you in the eyes and tell you like what's in it for you, or like what would push you over the edge, like it's that like lucky for you, it's not about us. It's about the one who gave everything for us, who created us in His own image and decided that we were good, and he delights in bringing His kids home and being close to us. I think there's room for both.
Yeah, that's a great question, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Keep asking that one.
Yeah,
Let that be
it.
like a thing on this podcast. I
Yeah.
think that's great.
Yeah, it'd be like that's a good way to end like the podcast.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
Just
Gives y'all something to chew on.
It's like, and like our last guest, Richard, we had on here. Like I even asked him like, what do you think the gospel is? Like what is it? You know.
Yeah.
I just think
yeah,
it's
it's good
very
because I know you guys want to have people on here that's not
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like I guess just believers.
yeah, and I know for my personal life, the church does a very bad job at like up front. What is the gospel?
Yeah.
You know, because I can remember my old youth pastor. I think it was as we were in youth group, and he like straight up was like, "What's the gospel?" And then like we were all like,
Jesus.
well, like Jesus died on the cross. He's like, okay, yeah, and he's like, and we're like, and he saved us from our sins. And he's like, so you guys don't really know. It's like, it's really simple. It's
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
God created us to be perfect and to walk beside Him. We screwed that up, so then He fixed it for us, and like that is really like conceptually,
Yeah.
it's very simple, but when you like dive into it, there's an entire book on it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's
I
the
mean,
most simple complex thing imaginable.
The word gospel, I mean, it means good news.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
I hear the word gospel, I think of something charged that I have to use to convince somebody, but I'm like, what is the good news about this?
Yeah, it's
There's a really awesome creator God that loves us and knows us deeply, that we in turn are invited to get to know.
yeah.
And that was made possible like through the shedding of the blood of His Son.
Yeah.
So that's how I want to answer that question. Like, what? There's a lot of crap like in here that doesn't look all great. Like,
Mhm.
what's the good news in it? I think it's what we just talked about.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
Loved having.
Thank you guys for
having
coming
First
out.
podcast.
Yeah. Forgot a couple of times that there were cameras in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes
That-
by
and that's-
quickly
that's
too. We've
the
been sitting here
point.
for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's not
That's
after 9 o'clock.
crazy, bro.
Yeah.
We got here at 3 o'clock.
but yeah.
That's the point, is for it to just be like a conversation. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
With uncomfortable chairs and
with uncomfortable chairs and
Yeah.
weird circular lights.
everybody watching us in the audience.
Yeah.
And definitely
yeah.
not
Yeah, I
a
was
car
so
jack
nervous.
box
Yeah.
propping up a.
Yeah.
But that was like hypothetically. If that
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the case.
No, he said
It's the
that's
case
not.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
we
that
can, We
camera.
can cut the cameras here in a little bit. No, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thanks for doing this, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for being faithful.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for not just.
Rising Tide, link in bio, or link in description.
Better be.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your bio.
No.
He agreed to it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
Sweet.
pay for the ad space.
That's wild.
We appreciate y'all for watching. I hope everybody
Yeah.
has a blessed night. And yeah, stay tuned for the next episode next week. Stay
Yeah.
blessed.